When family is everything, you make sure to spend every moment you can with them. When it comes to the cattle operation, well, that time can often be limited. We met with Brian Alderson just outside Sioux Falls to have him show us how efficient he is with his unique cattle operation, maximizing his family time and being there to watch his little ones grow up. This cattle raising technique is really something else. Let's have a look. We're sitting here with Brian Alderson. Brian, why don't you just, again, this isn't live, so if we screw something up wording, just tell us where we're at and a little bit about how we came to be right here on this piece of ground.
Well, we're in Hartford, South Dakota, just outside of Wall Lake, about 12 miles straight west of Sioux Falls and 7 miles south of Hartford. We're on my family's homesteaded quarter of land since 1876 by my great-grandfather. Walter D. came up from Yankton in 1871 to plant his flag here and stake his claim.
So, I mean, you're talking a couple of decades almost before this was even a state at that point, 1871. So what do you know about Walter D. coming up here from Yankton?
Not a whole lot, surprisingly. I know he came up here from Yankton as a bachelor and lived and tilled the land for several years before he married the daughter of one of the neighbor guys and ended up having a pretty large family. I want to say that there's 8 kids to begin with. Obviously, at those days and age, several of them didn't make it past a year, and most of them didn't make it past 10 years. So yeah. He was the last of the bunch, and actually, he didn't know my grandfather Marvin didn't know his dad very well either, because he died 6 months after Marvin was born. Yeah. So. It was a little different time back then.
But yet it stayed in the family name for 4 or 5 generations now.
Yeah, I'm the 4th, hopefully raising the 5th right now. So, yeah, Marvin had some older brothers, and they were kind of in charge of the land, and they both died young while he went to World War II, and he drove truck over there and married what ended up being my grandmother when he was living in North Dakota trying to find work in the 40s. And they got married as his brother passed away. He came back down to the farm and took over from there.
Well, and if you were in North Dakota, coming here is kind of like paradise then.
Yeah, this is God's country down here.
Compared to that.
This is God's country. The highest point in elevation in North Dakota is the interstate crossings.
Yeah, there you go. Where it comes from.
Like I just got done explaining, off my small farm, I produce 900,000 pounds of beef a year. Well, that's usable product.
It's a lot of protein.
That's, 231 pounds of meat consumed by the average person in this country a year. I mean, you're talking about thousands of individuals that are fed from one producer in one small community in South Dakota.
Right.
It's kind of mind-boggling to think about.
I mean, when it gets down to it, we're fighting hunger. We're fighting a lot of things, and at the same time, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm just guessing, with your family history and legacy and what I've already heard you say kind of between the lines here, probably as important or more important to you than making money or feeding people is the legacy that you're setting, that you're living up to, and that you're also leaving behind for your little ones. The last thing you want to do is degrade this in any way, shape, or form, so that your boys don't have the same opportunity.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Farmers are the true environmentalists. We're out here taking care of it and tending the ground every year, and we make decisions. We can't make year-to-year decisions. We have to make 5-year, 10-year generational decisions. I'm the 4th generation, and I'm currently raising the 5th, and hopefully at least one of them wants to come back and take the reins. But yeah.
Well, what are we going to do?
Oh, well, I'm just going to jump in that skid loader there, dump a little feed in. I'm going to fire it up and let it mix for about 5 minutes and feed some steers.
have somebody that does your ration sort?
Yeah, I have a nutritionalist, and we're actually relatively tied. We're tied in together pretty good. He actually delivers all my recipes and ingredients straight to this tablet. So any changes, and we send feed samples off continuously just to check for nutrient content and moisture, so that we know that every mouthful that these animals are eating, they're going to use it efficiently. We're a row crop corn and beans, small row crop, custom feed cattle. Got a 600 head all enclosed cattle confinement building. That really freed up a lot of my time to be able to spend more time with my family, which I appreciate. You know, so many people my generation and younger left the farm for better opportunities because it's a lot of hard work and it takes a lot of grit, and to maybe ease a little bit of the pressure off is part of the challenge. So,
well, and that's, you know, people talk about it. It's a tough life, and it sure can be. But you know, with advancements in technology, you know, those are designed to make our lives easier. So, I mean, without, you know, that's part of the reason we're here, is because you've got a really cool setup that you, it sounds like a friend have designed. So,
like I said, it's all enclosed cattle barn. We have a central conveyor that deposits feed to the cattle once a day. There's 600 head in there, divided up by 4 pens. It's as simple as, it's a pretty tight. It's with true CAFO. It's pretty tightly designed. I empty or fill a feed wagon once a day, twice a day for different pens, and watch it unroll and watch feed fall off the conveyor. It's as easy as that. It's really changed my time schedule from, you know, 5, 6, 7 hours a day down to an hour and a half to 2 hours a day. Well, obviously, it's really important to know your costs going in and out, because an old rancher once told me that oftentimes your first loss in the cattle business is your cheapest loss.
right.
Which, if you don't know where you are, how can you manage? If you can't,
Right.
if you don't know your numbers, how can you manage your operation?
Right. Well,
So-
if you don't measure it, you can't improve it. Right.
There it is.
Yeah.
There it is. So,
So then do you calculate all the way down to your rate of gain and your feed efficiency for each pen, and you know where you're kind of winning or losing, or
Yep.
tweak that? You know,
yeah,
from
we
each
really
past?
try to monitor dry matter intake, because weight is one thing, but I could dump 10,000 pounds of that to that pen. If it's 90% water, they'll disappear.
Right.
You know, but if I'm feeding a 65% moisture ration versus 75, that's feed still in the bunker,
Right.
and feed wasted down the pit. So,
Right.
you know what's worse than finding a worm in your apple, right?
What's that?
Find a apple worm.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Oh, man.
Yeah, I argued with a friend of mine one time. I said, the only way you can make money in cow-calf out here is if you own your own pasture. I said, BS. The only way you can do that is if you rented your pasture cheap.
Right.
I said, how do you figure? I said, well, if somebody's willing to give you $80 an acre for your pasture, that's what it's worth. Why would you go through all the work just to make $20 back on your pasture rent?
Right.
You just rent it to somebody else and not bale the hay and not run the cows, you know?
And we just lease all of our pasture, and you know, we have a pretty good deal, but I mean, it works for us, so it's. Keeping in mind, you know, our audience here is we're trying to get to, you know, maybe a more urban audience that, you know, they hear CAFO, or maybe they don't even know what a CAFO is. Can you describe what that is, and just kind of, you know, what people, you know, may think that is and what it actually is?
So CAFO stands for Confined Animal Feeding Operation. and they're various sizes. You know, I first applied for a building permit, and I said, I'm putting up an AFO. And they said, no, you're putting up a CAFO. I said, well, it says right here in the rules that a CAFO is over 1,000 animal units. I'm putting up 600. I'm putting up an AFO, animal feeding operation, you know, because like you say, the CAFO terminology puts a bad image in people's minds. But, you know, 97% of the state of South Dakota is owned by farming operations or family farms, and we're one of them. We just happen to have a feedlot operation where we have animals tighter. I want to say the rules are tighter than a couple hundred square foot per head.
You know, you hear so much about grass-fed beef, and you see these beautiful pictures of cows out on the range and eating grass. You know, why have you chosen to pursue that CAFO operation?
Well, you know, my operation, we own and operate 400 acres out here. Space cows and raise calves to a finished product on 400 acres. You're looking at me being able to produce, you know, 20, 30 head a year, 6,000 pounds of beef, you know, usable product. Right. And as of right now, under this CAFO, almost all the feed comes from the same 400 acres. Yeah. But I'm producing 800,000 pounds of meat a year.
Yeah,
which
amazing.
It's pretty substantial for one individual to be able to do that by himself. There's no employees out here, just me and the family.
So the amount of people you are able to feed a high quality protein to by putting up a building like this is just, it just goes up exponentially. And I mean, that's, like we said, you know, people can take for granted the cheap sources of protein we have in this country, but it's because of people like you and your investment, time, money, and effort to make that process so efficient that we produce not only the best beef in the world, but the most beef. And I think it's just amazing that, you know, we're fighting hunger, we're fighting a lot of different things with this. So it's pretty awesome. One thing you haven't talked much about is that transition from generation to generation on the farm. And I mean, that can be tough sometimes to go from, you know, especially obviously you're wanting to do new things, different things. And you know, you said your dad had some health problems and you came back home to help. And I mean, how did that transition go? I'm sure there was some tough spots in there, but it seems like you guys have definitely been let a little rain out so that you can do what you think is best.
Yeah, there's always a pretty good, you know, me and my dad were both pretty bullheaded going at each other for a while. And I come back to help, and he was, this is the way we do it. This is the way I do it, you know, and then it falls into this is the way I want to do it. But you know, there comes a point where you're working on the farm with your father and you've had a good idea, you've had another good idea, and eventually you do something really, really well that your dad never expected you to do or never even thought about before. And he turns and looks at you and says, I really can't teach you anything anymore, can I? Yeah. You know, and that's a pretty proud moment in a young man's life to hear that from his father, because that means he's done his job well, and that's a proud moment for him as well.
Absolutely.
So aside from that transition in the farm, I mean, there's the mentality side, and then there's also the financial side.
Sure.
It doesn't matter when it turns over. It's no, not right now, buddy. It doesn't matter when it turns over. I mean, if it's an inheritance tax on the back end, or if it's a capital gains tax if you're buying it out from them.
Right.
You got to factor in their taxes and their situation because they're on a fixed income.
Right. And
you also got to make sure to keep it fair and balanced for the rest of the family. I mean, I have 3 older sisters, and nobody's, you know, try to make it as fair as we can. So.
Right. know, met your beautiful wife and your wonderful family. Tell us about how you met her and how that got started.
That's a pretty interesting story.
I had a friend that asked me if I wanted to go out and have a beer with her, and she asked because she knew I would probably say yes. And
I was working in Sioux Falls as a bouncer in a bar.
she said we were gonna meet some people. I'm like, okay, whatever, I'll go. I didn't know anybody, it's fine. Well, I show up, and apparently she was on a blind date with Brian.
Pointed me out from across the room to one of her friends at a bachelor party and said, I know he's single and he's looking. You want me to introduce you? She said, yes. Well, our plans fell through a couple times, so it was a true blind date. So she got a little bit nervous and she decided to invite a friend for just a meet and greet. Aaron was her friend.
So it was just her and I and Brian. And then apparently she started inviting some other people along, and I didn't know them either. And so I was just like, well, I'll sit and visit with him. He's easy to talk to. He didn't know any of them either.
So I went on a blind date with 2 girls, and the next day, both of them called me back and said, I had a great time. We should do it again.
So I found him on Facebook and sent him a message. And, you know, it was 1:30 in the morning, and sending a guy a message. I was like, this is just not like me. I shouldn't be doing this. And the next day, he messaged me back. He said, wow, that's the boldest thing I've ever seen anybody do.
Hey, that's what we call a high-class problem,
Yeah,
right? That's a good problem to have.
And you didn't grow up farming.
No, my grandparents, my dad's side grew up farming, so and my parents were young when they had me, so I grew up around the farm a lot. I have a lot of aunts and uncles that farm, so I grew up around it, but not. I mean, we were town kids, so yep. So, but I grew up out in the country, being with my grandparents a lot. So. Well,
it seems like you've certainly found your stride here. It looks like Brian can leave for however long he wants, and you'll hold down the fort and keep the cows fed.
I try.
Yeah, it looks like you do a wonderful job in raising some beautiful young kids. It's fun to see, you know, people that are still living, you know, this country life, this homegrown life. You know, there's a lot of pessimism in agriculture and people saying that young people can't do it, and there's not any young people going into this business, and there's no profitability. And I just think it's a wonderful testament to you and Brian and your family that you guys are here doing this, making an investment and doing what you think is best for your family.
Thank you. Yeah, we try to keep it simple and work hard.
Awesome.
That's how it works, you know.
Very cool. Well, and if it's, you know, like you were saying earlier, if you can take some pretty girl out into the back of the farm and look over the landscape, you know, that's just a wonderful thing to be able to do. And you know, it's so awesome to be able to be a part of that and to have more people come out and to appreciate that. But at the same time, you have to be profitable to be sustainable. Mm-hmm. So yes, ecologically, we want to do what's right, and you are containing the waste from 600 animals here in this really revolutionary style building, but you're also making it more economically feasible for you guys to make a living and to pass that on, and to have some hope and promise into this, because nobody wants to come back to a farm if it's all work and no fun and no profit. Even if it is beautiful, you got to make some money at it too.
Yeah, how many first dates end with a drive out to a secluded pasture and sitting on top of a terrace overlooking the sunset, right?
Just the best ones.
Yeah, just the best ones. Yeah, you know, all these crops that are grown out in this area, they all revolve around a couple key nutrients, same as humans, and that we're absorbing those nutrients, N, P, and K, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. What you don't realize is that a lot of that NPK comes from natural gas mines. This building itself, it recycles all those nutrients within that pit that I disperse back out into the field. And there it is, the Bicentennial Homestead, Walter D. Alderson, 1876.
It's awesome.
Yeah, we pretty proud of that.
Absolutely.
I don't know if we just got kicked out of every decent place to live and we were stubborn enough to stay, but at least that speaks to some longevity here, right?
think it's in any family. It all comes down to your communication and working as a team.
Sure.
And I think everybody's got to do that. And working on the farm, that's the biggest part of it is working together and making sure you're all on top of everything, because there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And we're always changing something. Always got to have something to do. So
just communicating, with your husband and setting them goals and where you guys want to be and what you're trying to do, whether you're, if everybody's rowing the same direction, you sure get further.
We try to have a dream, but a goal without a plan is just a dream. So we're really goal setters here and going for it. So it's our lifelong thing is to get these boys out here and teach them how to work hard.
Taylor rides just as well as anyone.